Ambassador Kethral had seen many ships in his 300 years of service to the Galactic Council. He had watched the elegant silver vessels of the Aldrani glide through space like swimming creatures. He had observed the massive black warships of his own Volanti people move with deadly purpose. He had even witnessed the strange living ships of the Nethari pulse with organic light, but he had never seen anything like the 5 vessels that dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the lesser system that morning. Thought they were ugly. That was his first thought. Angular and gray, built with no concern for beauty or grace. They looked like tools, not ships. Like hammers made of metal and fire. His second thought came when the sensor data reached his screen. These ships were damaged. Not just scratched or dented from normal space travel. These vessels had been through war. Deep burn marks covered their hulls like old wounds. Plasma scoring ran along their sides in patterns that spoke of close combat. Several sections showed hasty repairs, where hull breaches had been sealed with whatever material was available. The weapons on these ships had been fired recently, very recently, and fired often. Kethral leaned forward in his seat and studied the data more carefully. His military training allowed him to read battle damage like others might read a book. These ships had fought something with weapons he did not recognize. And they had fought it for a long time. The communication signal came through before he could report his findings. A voice spoke in a language the translation systems needed a moment to process. When the words finally came through clearly, they were simple and direct. "This is Captain Jake Morris of the human vessel Horizon. We come in peace. We request permission to address the Galactic Council." Human. Kethral searched his memory. He had heard rumors of a new species discovered in the unexplored regions. Young, primitive, barely capable of faster-than-light travel. The reports had dismissed them as unimportant. Looking at their ships now covered in the marks of desperate battle, Kethral wondered if those reports had been very wrong. High Counselor Myrith responded to the human transmission herself. She was old even by Aldrani standards, and she had maintained peace among the 47 species of the Council for 3 centuries. Her voice carried the weight of that experience. "Human vessels, you have entered Council space without prior contact or invitation. Explain your presence and the condition of your ships." There was a pause. When Captain Morris spoke again, his voice sounded tired. Not weak, but exhausted in a way that came from carrying heavy burdens for too long. "High Counselor, my people discovered your council's existence 4 months ago. We have been trying to reach you since then. We come seeking allies, not war. But I will not lie to you. We bring a warning. Something is coming. Something that has already destroyed 3 of our worlds." The council chamber erupted in noise. Kethral watched representatives of dozens of species react with fear, anger, and confusion. Some demanded the humans leave immediately. Others called for more information. A few suggested destroying the human ships before whatever followed them could arrive. Myrith raised her hand for silence. It took longer than usual for the chamber to quiet. "You speak of a threat," she said. "What threat? From where?" "We call them the Swarm," Morris replied. "We do not know their true name. They do not communicate. They only consume. They have been hunting us for over a year. We have fought them at every turn, but we cannot defeat them alone. We lost too many ships. Too many people." Kethral noticed something in the sensor data that made his blood run cold. The human ships were not just damaged. They were running on minimal power. Their engines had been active for months without proper maintenance. These vessels had been fleeing without rest, fighting and running and fighting again for longer than most species could endure. And there was something else. The cargo bays of these ships were not filled with trade goods or supplies. They were filled with life signs. thousands of them, packed into spaces meant for equipment and storage. Refugees. The humans had brought refugees. "High Counselor," Kethril spoke up, breaking protocol. "I request permission to share tactical analysis." Myrith looked at him with ancient eyes. She nodded once. Kethril sent his data to every screen in the chamber. These ships have been in continuous combat for approximately 12 standard months. The damage patterns suggest an enemy with overwhelming numbers and organic-based weapons. The humans have not stopped at any port or station during their flight. They have been running and fighting without support. He paused to let that information settle in. There are over 4,000 life signs aboard these 5 vessels. Based on the ship designs, maximum comfortable capacity would be 800. These humans have packed their ships with survivors. They are not invaders. They are refugees carrying refugees. The chamber fell silent. Captain Morris spoke again. "We have the last survivors of 3 human colony worlds aboard our ships. New Pittsburgh, Haven, and Prosperity. The swarm took them all. We saved who we could. We fought as long as we could. But we need help. And more than that, you need to know what is coming. Because the swarm is not just hunting us. They are expanding. And they are moving in this direction." Counselor Veth of the Nathari Collective stood. His species resembled tall insects, and they had always been the most cautious members of the Council. "How do we know you did not lead them here deliberately? Perhaps you seek to sacrifice us to save yourselves." "If we wanted to run, we would have run in a different direction," Morris answered. "We came here because you have the largest fleet in this region of space. We came here because together we might have a chance. Alone, we have none. And neither do you." Myrith raised her hand again. "The Council will vote on whether to grant the human delegation an audience. All representatives will register their decision now." Kethril voted yes without hesitation. Whatever these humans were, they had fought something terrible for a very long time. They deserved to be heard. The vote passed. Barely done as the human ships were granted permission to approach the Council station. A young Volanti analyst approached Kethril with trembling hands. "Ambassador," she whispered, "I found something in the long-range sensor data. There is a large energy signature moving through hyperspace. It is following the path the humans took to reach us." Kethril looked at the data. His military mind calculated speed, distance, and time. "How long until it arrives?" 3 days, the analyst said. "Maybe less." Kethril looked out the viewport at the battered human ships limping toward the station. They had come to warn the Council. They had come seeking help, but they had not escaped. They had only delayed the inevitable. The swarm was coming. Captain Jake Morris stood in the center of the Grand Assembly Chamber and felt the weight of 47 species watching him. The chamber was enormous, built to hold representatives from every corner of known space. Thousands of eyes, some with pupils and some without, stared down at the tired human in the worn uniform. He had not slept properly in 6 months. None of his crew had. But sleep could wait. His people needed all eyes, and this was their only chance. 18 months ago, Morris began, keeping his voice steady. Humanity achieved faster than light travel. We were excited. The universe was suddenly open to us. We sent ships in every direction, eager to explore, to discover, to find new worlds for our growing population. He touched a control on his wrist, and a holographic star map appeared above him. It showed a region of space the Council had marked as unexplored. 6 months into our exploration, one of our colony ships found a world that seemed perfect, green, full of life. They called it Haven. Morris paused. 3 weeks later, we lost all contact with Haven. When we sent a rescue ship, we found nothing. The colony was gone. The people were gone. Even the animals and plants were gone. The entire surface had been stripped bare. Murmurs spread through the chamber. We did not understand what had happened. We thought it might be a natural disaster. Then we lost New Pittsburgh. Same pattern. Complete consumption of all organic matter. That is when we first saw them. The hologram changed to show combat footage. The images were shaky, recorded during battle, but they clearly showed the enemy. Massive organic ships that looked like twisted sea creatures. Thousands of smaller craft that swarmed like angry insects. Weapons that fired streams of acid and bioplasma. We call them the Swarm. They do not talk. They do not negotiate. They do not stop. They consume everything in their path and move on to the next world. We have fought them for 12 months. We have lost 2 more colonies and 19 ships. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant stepped forward. She was a small woman with short brown hair and burned scars across both hands. Those scars were recent, earned pulling wounded crew members from a burning deck. "I am the tactical officer of the Horizon," she said. "I have fought the Swarm in 11 engagements. They adapt quickly. They learn from every battle. But they have weaknesses. Their command structure depends on larger ships that coordinate the smaller ones. Destroy the command ships, and the Swarm becomes disorganized." She showed more footage. Human vessels, outgunned and outnumbered, using precise strikes to take out Swarm command ships. The tactics were clever, born from desperation and necessity. Ambassador Cathrall watched with growing respect. These humans were not natural warriors. Their ships were slower, their weapons weaker, their armor thinner than Volanti designs. But they fought with a stubborn refusal to accept defeat. They found ways to win battles they should have lost. High Counselor Myrith leaned forward. "You say you have been fighting alone for 12 months. Why did you not seek help sooner?" Morris looked up at her. "We tried. We sent distress signals in every direction. No one answered. We did not even know the Council existed until 4 months ago, when we captured a damaged Swarm vessel and found navigation data in its systems. Data that showed them mapping routes toward this region of space." The chamber erupted in worried voices. "The Swarm is not just hunting humanity," Morris continued. "They are expanding. The direction they are moving will bring them to Council space within 2 years. Maybe less. We came here to warn you, and to ask for help. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone." A young human officer stepped forward. His uniform was clean, but his eyes carried the same exhaustion as his captain. His name was Daniel Perry, and he had been a simple navigation officer before the war began. Now, he was one of the few survivors of the colony ship that had evacuated New Pittsburgh. "I was there when New Pittsburgh fell," Daniel said. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the silent chamber. "We had 12 hours to evacuate a city of 50,000 people. We had 3 ships. We saved 8,000. He stopped. His hands were shaking. "I watched from orbit as the Swarm consumed our world. I heard the last transmissions from people we could not reach. Families calling for help. Children crying. And then nothing. Just silence." Daniel looked up at the Council representatives. "We are not asking you to fight for us. We are asking you to fight with us. Because what happened to New Pittsburgh will happen to your worlds too. The Swarm does not care what species you are. They only care that you are made of organic matter they can consume." The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Counselor Veth of the Nathari spoke first. "You bring this threat to our doorstep and then ask for our help. How convenient." Morris turned to face the insectoid representative. "Would you prefer we had said nothing? We could have run in a different direction. We could have let the Swarm find you without warning. Instead, we came here. We shared everything we know, every tactic we have developed, every weakness we have discovered. We did this because we believe that species should help each other, even species we have never met." "Pretty words," Beth replied. "But words do not stop enemies." "No," Morris agreed. "Ships stop enemies. Weapons stop enemies. People willing to fight stop enemies. We have fought the swarm for a year with 5 ships and 1,200 crew. Imagine what we could do together." Kethril stood. "I have reviewed the human tactical data. Their analysis of swarm weaknesses is sound. Their combat techniques are unorthodox but effective. If we combine their knowledge with Volanthi firepower, we have a real chance." "A chance," Beth repeated. "Not a certainty. There are no certainties in war," Kethril responded. "Only chances. The humans have given us information that could save millions of lives. The least we can do is listen." High Counselor Myrith raised her hand. "We have heard the human testimony. We will recess for deliberation. Captain Morris, your ships will remain at the station under guard until a decision is reached." Morris nodded. He had done everything he could. The rest was up to the Council. As he turned to leave, the chamber's long-range sensors activated with an emergency alert. Every screen in the room displayed the same data. A massive energy signature had been detected approaching from hyperspace. It matched the profile of swarm vessels. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. The swarm had followed the human fleet, and they were arriving much faster than anyone had predicted. Morris looked at the data and felt his heart sink. 3 days. The analyst had said 3 days. The swarm had covered that distance in less than 12 hours. They were adapting. They were learning. And they were almost here. The council chamber exploded into chaos. Representatives of 47 species shouted over each other, their voices blending into a wall of noise. Some demanded immediate evacuation. Others called for the humans to be expelled from council space. A few sat in stunned silence, unable to process the approaching threat. High Counselor Myrith struck her staff against the floor 3 times. The sound cut through the noise like a blade. Slowly, the chamber fell quiet. "We have approximately 18 hours before the swarm arrives," she announced. Her voice was calm, but Kethril could see the tension in her ancient face. "We must decide our course of action. All options will be heard." Counselor Veth stood immediately. "The solution is obvious. The humans brought this enemy to our space. Send them away. Let the swarm follow them elsewhere. We did not invite this war." Captain Morris stepped forward. "If we leave, the swarm will still come here. They have already mapped this region. They know you exist. Our presence or absence will not change that." "You cannot know that," Veth argued. "I know how they behave," Morris replied. "I have watched them for a year. Once they identify a food source, they do not forget it. They will consume your worlds whether we stay or go. The only question is whether you want to fight them alone or with allies who know their weaknesses." Ambassador Kethril stood and addressed the chamber. "I have spent my life studying warfare. I have seen the human tactical data. Their assessment is correct. The swarm is not a force that can be appeased or redirected. They are a threat that must be stopped." A representative from the Aldrani homeworld spoke next. "How can we trust these humans? We met them hours ago. Now they ask us to die beside them?" "They did not ask us to die," Kethril corrected. "They asked us to fight. There is a difference. And they came here knowing the swarm was following. They could have fled anywhere. They chose to warn us instead." The debate continued for 3 hours. Captain Morris remained silent through most of it, letting the council argue among themselves. He understood that nothing he said would convince those who had already decided against him. He could only hope that enough representatives would see reason. On the horizon, Lieutenant Commander Grant coordinated with Volanti tactical officers through secure channels. She shared combat data freely, explaining human strategies and the lessons they had learned through blood and sacrifice. A Kais, Volanti officer named Kethver, studied the information with growing amazement. "Your ships are inferior to ours in almost every way," he said. "Slower engines, weaker shields, less powerful weapons. How have you survived this long?" Grant smiled tiredly. "We are very stubborn. Stubborn does not win wars. It does when you refuse to lose." Grant pulled up a tactical display. "Your weapons are better than ours, but you fire them in standard patterns. The swarm learns patterns quickly. We learn to be unpredictable. Random firing sequences, unconventional formations, attacks from directions they do not expect." Kethver studied the data. "This is unorthodox. It keeps us alive." Grant looked at him directly. "Your ships are stronger than ours. If you combine your firepower with our tactics, we can hurt them. Really hurt them." In the engine room of the Horizon, Chief Engineer Scott Palmer worked alongside his exhausted crew to repair critical systems. The ship had been running beyond its limits for months. Every component was stressed, every system pushed past safe parameters. A young engineer named Beth Cooper approached him. "Chief, the port thruster assembly is failing. We need parts we do not have." Palmer wiped grease from his hands. "Then we make parts. Strip non-essential systems. The observation deck lighting, the recreational facilities. Anything we do not need for combat. That will only buy us a few hours of operation. A few hours might be all we need." Palmer looked around the engine room at his tired crew. "Listen up. I know you are exhausted. I know we have been running this ship with wire and hope for longer than anyone should. But we have to keep her flying a little longer. Just one more battle. Can you do that?" The crew nodded. They had heard this speech before, after every engagement, after every desperate repair. And they would keep nodding until they had nothing left to give. Back in the council chamber, the vote approached. I-Council and Myrith called for final statements. Morris stood one last time. "I will not beg for your help. I will only say this. The people on my ships have lost everything. Their homes, their families, their worlds. They have fought for a year against an enemy that outnumbers them 100 to 1. They are tired and scared and broken. But they are still fighting. Because that is what humans do. We do not give up. We do not surrender. We fight until we cannot fight anymore, and then we find a way to fight some more." They looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. "If you choose to stand with us, we will fight beside you to our last breath. If you choose to abandon us, we will fight alone, as we have always done. Either way, we will face the swarm, because running is not an option anymore. For us or for you." Morris sat down. The chamber fell silent. Myrith called for the vote. One by one, representatives registered their decisions. Cathrall watched the numbers change on his display. It was going to be close. Very close. Then something unexpected happened. Without waiting for the vote to conclude, 3 Volanti warships broke formation and moved alongside the human fleet. Cathrall recognized the lead ship as the Dominion's Pride, commanded by Admiral Vethener, the most respected military leader in Volanti history. A message came through on the general channel. Vethener's voice was rough with age but steady with purpose. "The Volanti do not abandon those who fight with honor. We stand with the humans." More ships began to move. Alderaani medical vessels positioned themselves behind the battle line. 3 smaller species moved their single defensive ships into formation. Even a few Nathari vessels, ignoring Councillor Veth's protests, joined the growing fleet. The vote was still ongoing, but the fleet had already decided. Grant watched from the Horizon's bridge as allied ships took position around them. She felt tears forming in her eyes, but refused to let them fall. There would be time for emotion later. Now there was work to do. "Captain," she said through the communication channel, "the vote does not matter anymore. They are standing with us." Morris looked at the tactical display showing friendly vessels surrounding his battered ships. For the first time in months, he felt something other than despair. Hope. "All ships," he broadcast, "prepare for combat. The swarm arrives in 15 hours. Let us show them what happens when they pick a fight with the wrong galaxy." Outside the viewport, human and alien ships moved together into battle formation. Different species, different technologies, different histories. United by a common enemy and the simple choice to stand together. The swarm was coming. And for the first time, they would face more than desperate humans fighting alone. They would face an alliance. The swarm arrived at dawn. 2,000 bioorganic vessels tore through the fabric of hyperspace and emerged in a spreading cloud of death. They were beautiful in a terrible way, their twisted organic forms pulsing with alien life. Smaller craft swarmed around the larger ships, like angry insects protecting their hive. Captain Morris stood on the bridge of the horizon and watched them come. He had seen this sight before, at Haven, at New Pittsburgh, at Prosperity. Each time, the swarm had seemed unstoppable. Each time, humanity had found a way to survive a little longer. This time would be different. This time, they were not alone. "All ships, this is Morris. Hold formation until they enter optimal range. We hit the command ships first. Make every shot count." The Allied fleet spread across the space between the swarm and the Council station. 47 Volanti warships formed the center line, their heavy weapons primed and ready. Human vessels held the flanks, their crews experienced in the desperate tactics needed against this enemy. Smaller Allied ships filled the gaps, each one ready to fight despite knowing they were OUTMATCHE. Lieutenant Commander Grant worked her console with focused intensity. Swarm fleet entering weapons range in 3 minutes. "I am identifying command ships now." The Volanti tactical officer Kethfer worked beside her. "Your targeting data is being distributed to all Allied vessels. We will coordinate our fire on your signal." Grant nodded. This was the plan they had developed together in the brief hours before the battle. Human tactical knowledge combined with Volanti firepower. Theory meeting practice. 2 minutes, Grant announced. All ships confirm ready status. Acknowledgements came in from across the fleet. Humans, Volanti, Aldrani, and a dozen other species reported ready for combat. Morris felt a strange pride in that moment. 12 months ago, humanity had not known these species existed. Now they stood together against a common enemy. 1 minute. Targeting solutions locked. Morris gripped his armrest. "All batteries prepare to fire on my command." The swarm began accelerating. Thousands of smaller craft raced ahead of the main fleet, eager to tear into the defenders. Bioplasma weapons charged with sickly green light. "Now," Morris said, "the Allied fleet opened fire. Heavy railgun rounds from human ships crossed with energy beams from Volanti weapons." The combined barrage slammed into the approaching swarm with devastating effect. Dozens of smaller craft exploded in the first volley. More importantly, 3 command ships took direct hits, their organic hulls rupturing under the concentrated assault. "Command ships down," Grant reported. "Sector 7 is disorganized. Press the attack." Volanti warships pushed forward, their superior armor allowing them to absorb the return fire that would have destroyed human vessels. They carved a path through the smaller swarm craft while human ships targeted the command vessels, coordinating the enemy response. But the swarm was vast, and they learned quickly. Within minutes, they adapted their tactics. Smaller craft began sacrificing themselves to shield the command ships. Attack patterns shifted to exploit gaps in the Allied formation. A Volante cruiser took a direct hit and began venting atmosphere. "Horizon, enemy vessels approaching from Sector 4, Grant warned. "They are targeting the refugee transports." Morris turned to his helmsman. "Move to intercept. All ahead full." The Horizon surged forward, placing itself between the attacking swarm craft and the vulnerable transport ships carrying 4,000 human survivors. Her weapons fired continuously, tearing apart smaller enemies as they approached. Daniel Perry led a squadron of human fighters in a desperate defense alongside the Horizon. His small craft weaved through enemy fire, targeting weapon clusters on larger swarm vessels. "Transport Group, this is Perry. Stay behind us. We will hold them off." A swarm of smaller enemy craft broke through the defensive line and headed straight for the lead transport. Perry pushed his fighter to maximum speed and intercepted them, his weapons blazing. He destroyed 3 before they could reach the civilian ship, but a 4th slipped past. "No," Perry breathed. He watched helplessly as the swarm craft slammed into the transport's engine section. The civilian ship shuddered but did not explode. Its engines were damaged, but it was still intact. "Transport 3, report status. Engine room hit. We have casualties, but we are stable." "Thank you, Lieutenant." Perry felt a wave of relief wash over him. Then he turned his fighter back toward the battle and rejoined the fight. On the Horizon's bridge, alarms screamed as the ship took hit after hit. Chief Engineer Palmer's voice crackled through the communication system. "Captain, we are losing structural integrity on decks 7 through 9. I can hold us together, but not forever. Do what you can, Scott. We need every minute you can give us." The battle raged for hours. The Allied fleet fought with everything they had, but the swarm kept coming. For every command ship destroyed, another took its place. For every wave of smaller craft eliminated, 2 more emerged from hyperspace. Grant checked the casualty reports and felt her heart sink. 3 human ships destroyed, 7 Volante vessels disabled, hundreds dead, with more dying every minute. "Captain, we are being pushed back. At this rate, they will reach the station in 2 hours." Morris studied the tactical display. The swarm command structure was weakening, but not fast enough. They needed to break the enemy's coordination completely. Then he saw it. The largest swarm vessel sitting at the center of their formation. The Queen ship. The one directing all the others. "Grant, can we reach that ship?" She calculated quickly. "If we go full burn, we can reach it in 10 minutes. But we will not survive the approach. Every swarm ship between here and there will target us." Morris nodded slowly. He had known it would come to this. He had hoped it would not, but some things could not be avoided. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for ramming maneuver. Non-essential personnel to the escape pods." The bridge crew looked at him with a mixture of fear and understanding. They had followed him through a year of impossible battles. They would follow him through this one too. "Captain," Grant said softly, "there has to be another way." "There is not. We take out that Queen ship. The swarm loses coordination. The fleet can finish them." Morris placed his hand on her shoulder. "Get to the escape pods, Lisa. Someone needs to survive this to tell the story. I am not leaving." "That is an order, Commander." Grant looked at him for a long moment. Then she straightened and saluted. "It has been an honor, Captain." The Horizon turned toward the Queen ship and accelerated. Swarm vessels swarmed around her, pounding her hull with weapons fire. Decks collapsed. Systems failed. Crew members died at their stations, but the Horizon kept flying. Morris watched the Queen ship grow larger on his view screen. Alarms screamed. Fire erupted across the bridge. He gripped his armrest and refused to look away. "All hands, abandon ship. That is final." Escape pods launched from the dying vessel as it plunged toward its target. Morris stayed at his post, guiding the ship on its final course. The horizon struck the Queen ship at full speed. Both vessels exploded in a massive fireball that lit up the battlefield dot and across the swarm fleet. Every ship suddenly stopped. Without the Queen's guidance, they became confused, attacking randomly, crashing into each other, losing all coordination. Admiral Vethiner's voice rang out across the communication channels. All ships, push forward now. Finish them. The Allied fleet surged into the disorganized swarm. What had been a desperate defense became a focused attack. Ship after ship fell to the combined assault. Within an hour, the remaining swarm vessels fled into hyperspace. Broken and scattered. The battle was over. Grant floated in an escape pod, watching the debris field where the horizon had been. Somewhere in that wreckage was Captain Morris, the man who had led them through a year of impossible odds. She could not cry. There would be time for tears later. Now, there was only the cold silence of space and the distant glow of burning ships. They had won. But the cost had been terrible. Lisa Grant woke in a bed that was not hers. The room around her was curved and smooth, made of a pale material that glowed with soft blue light. Medical equipment hummed quietly nearby, displaying data and symbols she did not recognize. A Volante medic noticed her movement and approached. "Commander Grant, you have been unconscious for 18 hours. Your injuries have been treated. You will recover fully." Grant sat up slowly, ignoring the pain that shot through her ribs. "The battle. What happened? Did we win?" "The swarm fleet has been destroyed or scattered. The survivors fled into deep space. Your tactics proved effective." The medic paused. "I'm sorry about your ship. And your captain." Grant felt the words hit her like a physical blow. She had known. Deep down, she had known since she watched the horizon explode. But hearing it confirmed made it real. Did anyone else from the horizon survive? 73 crew members escaped before the final impact. Chief Engineer Palmer organized the evacuation. He is recovering in another section of this facility. 73. Out of a crew of 240. Grant closed her eyes and let herself feel the grief for a moment. Then she pushed it aside. There would be time to mourn later. Now she had responsibilities. "I need to speak with the council. Where are the other human ships?" The medic hesitated. "Commander, you should rest. Your body needs time to heal. My body can wait. My people cannot. Please." The medic nodded slowly and helped her to her feet. "I will take you to the council chamber, but you must promise to return for further treatment." Grant promised. She would keep that promise eventually. The council chamber was quieter than before. Many seats were empty, their representatives either dead or tending to wounded ships. But the remaining members turned to watch as Grant entered. Supported by the Volante medic. High Councilor Myrith rose from her seat. "Commander Grant, we are relieved to see you recovered. Please, sit." Grant lowered herself into a chair that had been provided for her. "Thank you, High Counselor. I came to ask about the status of our fleet and our people. Of your 5 vessels, 2 remain operational. The Valor and the Spirit have sustained heavy damage but can be repaired. Your refugee transports all survived, thanks largely to the sacrifice of your captain and the Horizon crew." Grant nodded. 3 ships destroyed. Over 300 humans dead. But 4,000 refugees still alive. 4,000 people saved because Jake Morris had flown his dying ship into the heart of the enemy. "The council has been discussing the aftermath," Myrith continued. "We have reached several decisions." She gestured, and Ambassador Kethril stepped forward. "Commander, the Volante Dominion formally requests a permanent military alliance with humanity. Your tactics and courage have earned our respect. We would be honored to fight beside you again." Grant stared at him. "An alliance? Even after everything that happened?" "Because of everything that happened," Cathro replied. "You came to us as strangers with warnings of danger. You shared your knowledge freely. You fought beside us without hesitation. And your captain gave his life to save a station full of people he had never met. That is the foundation of true alliance." Myra spoke again. "Furthermore, the Council has voted to grant humanity full membership. You have earned your place among us through sacrifice and bravery. Your people will have the same rights and protections as any member species." Grant felt tears forming in her eyes. She let them fall this time. Jake would have been so proud. He had wanted this more than anything. Safety for their people. A place in the galaxy where humans could belong. "The Council also wishes to offer settlement rights to your refugees," Myra added. 3 worlds have volunteered to accept human colonists. Your people will have homes again. "Thank you," Grant managed to say. "Thank you all." Over the following weeks, the alliance solidified. Human tactical officers worked alongside Volanti commanders to develop combined strategies against future swarm attacks. Engineers from both species collaborated on ship designs that merged human creativity with Volanti power. Medical teams shared knowledge that improved treatment for all. Daniel Perry received a promotion and command of a joint human-Volanti patrol group. His mission was to hunt down remaining swarm elements before they could regroup. He approached the assignment with the same quiet determination he had shown at New Pittsburgh. Chief Engineer Palmer supervised the repair of the surviving human ships. He worked around the clock, refusing to rest until the Valor and Spirit were fully operational again. When asked why he pushed so hard, he simply said that Captain Morris would have expected nothing less. The refugees slowly began to rebuild their lives. Families who had lost everything found new homes on alien worlds. Children who had witnessed horrors learned to smile again. The survivors of Haven, New Pittsburgh, and Prosperity would never forget what they had lost. But they began to hope for what they might gain. 3 months after the battle, a memorial service was held in the council chamber. Representatives of every member species attended. They stood in silence as the names of the dead were read aloud. Human names mixed with Volanti names, mixed with names from a dozen other worlds. Grant spoke at the ceremony. Jake Morris always said that humanity's greatest strength was not our technology or our numbers. It was our refusal to give up. He believed that if we kept fighting, kept hoping, kept reaching out, we would find our place in the universe. He was right. We found that place. And we found it because of people like him. People willing to sacrifice everything so others could survive. She looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. "We came to this council as refugees with battle-scarred ships and desperate hope. You took us in. You fought beside us. You bled with us. Captain Morris and everyone who died in that battle did not sacrifice themselves for humanity alone. They sacrificed themselves for all of us, for the alliance we have built, for the future we will share." 6 months later, new human ships arrived at the council station. Fresh vessels from Earth, crewed by volunteers who had heard stories of the Horizon and her crew. They were clean and undamaged, their hulls gleaming in the starlight. Grant, now promoted to captain, watched them take position alongside Volanti warships. She stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned Horizon 2, named in honor of the ship that had saved them all. Admiral Morris's nameplate hung above the bridge. It had been recovered from the wreckage and restored with care. The metal was scorched and dented, but it still bore his name clearly, a reminder of what he had given. High Counselor Myrith joined her at the viewport. "Your people have come a long way in a short time." "We have had help," Grant replied. "Good allies make a difference." Myrith smiled. an expression Grant had learned to recognize despite the alien features. When you arrived here, some on the council wanted to turn you away. They saw your battle-scarred hulls and thought you would bring nothing but trouble. They were not entirely wrong. We did bring trouble. You brought more than trouble. Myrith gestured at the fleet assembled outside. Human and alien ships flying together, patrolling together, protecting each other. You brought hope and courage, and a reminder that strangers can become allies when they choose to stand together. Grant looked at the nameplate above the bridge. Jake Morris had believed in this future. He had fought and died for it. Now it was her job to protect it. Admiral Morris always said humanity would find its place in the universe, Grant said. I think he would be happy with where we ended up. He would be proud, Myrith agreed. As we all are. Outside, the Horizon 2 moved into formation with the Allied fleet. Her hull was clean and new, but she carried the spirit of her predecessor. The spirit of a ship and crew that had shown up at the Galactic Council with battle-scarred hulls and changed everything. Humanity had arrived as refugees. They would remain as allies, and the galaxy would never be the same.